speech courses are meant to be given in a class setting and/or environment. If you require your students to record a speech and then submit it over the internet, what exactly have they learned? How do you ask a student to plan and/or produce, say perform, a good speech with the guidelines given in a textbook if they can't even speak to an audience? I'm sure there are plenty of advantages to having an online class, but are those advantages more important than the disadvantages? And most importantly, if you take an online class for speech, is it a benefit to the student? Let us consider some advantages. One major advantage to taking an online speech class is that you can record it over and over until you're satisfied with it. However, when you record your speech over and over and over again until you are satisfied with it, how do you know that your audience is pleased? How do you know that your instructor is pleased? You don't, because you can't get feedback from camera. Another advantage is that you get to pick your own environment. Therefore, you may be more aloof and or comfortable in the setting in which you choose. However, just because you're comfortable in your setting doesn't mean that you're paying attention to your audience. It also doesn't mean that you're actually getting your point across and through to your audience. One more advantage is that you can choose when you want to record your speech. You're not as pressed for time. You may not feel like doing it today, then you can do it tomorrow. You may not have had enough time in your day to do it this day, so you can do it the next day. And if you're not a procrastinator, you can get on it as soon as possible. But although these are advantages, one major disadvantage to all of these advantages and to the course itself is that you can't get an actual feedback from your audience. When you're in a speech class, one of the things that you must take into consideration is your audience. That is one of the first things that you will learn, is that you need to make sure that you are always constantly considering your audience. How can you consider your audience if they can't even give you a feedback, if you can't even look at them? Nonverbal responses at the end of a speech may exercise some general feeling of the audience. For instance, you may get an applause. You can see your audience shaking their head yes or no. You can also see if your audience is paying attention to what you're saying, so you know whether or not your voice needs to get deeper, stronger, and or more firm. If you don't know if you're keeping your audience's attention and you're taking an online course, then you have to be that much better than your average student. Because as was said before, you don't know if they're paying attention. So you have to be confident enough to take this course and skilled enough to take this course, knowing that regardless of what you say or how you say it, your audience understands it, your audience may or may not agree, and your audience is paying attention to you at all times. More disadvantages are, to me, you don't have that much control over your grade. Anything could happen. You could break your camera. Then you have to go to the store, you have to buy another camera, you have to inform your instructor that you may or may not be able to record your speech by the deadline. Another thing is you can't control how long it takes to upload your video onto the internet. Personally, I myself had problems with YouTube. Our assignments for this course are due at 4 p.m. I can get online and start uploading at 1, and it might not be done till 6 p.m. And my instructor may or may not be pleased with that. That is taking points away from my grade. Something else that Mr. Jester helped me realize when I was conducting an interview with him at an earlier date is that some students don't have enough self-control to take a class with this much work on their own. When you have deadlines, when you know you have to be in class, and you meet with your class on a regular basis, it's easier to keep up with what you're doing. Also, when you are taking a speech class in class, you can perform more accurately. As Mr. Jester said earlier, he believes that students learn more in an actual live environment. And anyway, when you conduct speeches in the real world, how often are you going to convey your message to a camera? Not very likely. So although there are some advantages, like you get to pick your environment, or you can do it whenever you want to, regardless of what are you actually learning as a student? What can you get from this? If you cannot see your teacher on a regular basis, and you can't see your audience, and you don't know if they feel that you're getting better and you're getting worse, then how do you benefit from it? What have you learned? What can you take from a class that is clearly meant to be taken in class online?